Hey friends, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and today I am starting the audiobook of Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon, which is, where am I going to put it? Over here probably. Book 4 in the Outlander series. I'm so excited to continue this reread journey, and so now we have Jamie and Claire and Ian and Fergus and the whole gang in America. I believe they're in Georgia right now. They just landed after kind of rescuing Ian from Galis Duncan, and somehow they landed in America. So we've already met one new character this morning. Ian has acquired a kind of a wolf dog. Claire thinks it's a wolf. It's really just a really big dog, like kind of like a husky, I think, but with wolf tendencies, kind of wild. Ian's trying to domesticate him. He calls him Rollo, and Rollo hunts for his own food. He fishes, so he could come in handy, and he's been one of my favorite characters throughout for the rest of this series that we have him with. So I can't wait to continue this book and see the journey. I remember once we hit America, I was feeling similar to a lot of people who've read this whole series. It feels a little weird. I'm not sure. I have mixed feelings is what I'm trying to say about them in America. So we'll see how this reread goes and see if they change. So with Dragonfly and Amber, we have now met Stephen Bonnet for a second time, and he's now become the villain. He pirated the ship that Jamie and Claire and Ian and gang were on, and forced Claire to give over her wedding rings. But then she swallowed them. So I know where this is going. Stephen Bonnet turns out to be a real villain. And I can't wait for this journey again. So in Drums of Autumn, we've reached North Carolina now. They're at River Run with Jamie's Aunt Jocasta, and it sounds like they're going to be settling down there for a bit. Jenny has written Jamie saying that he needs to keep Ian there with him because things are getting dangerous in Scotland. All of the young men are being put into war now. They're being made into soldiers, and Jenny doesn't want to see yet another one of her sons become a soldier. She knows what happens. Ian, her husband, lost a leg in war, and so she says young Ian might be safer if he stays with you in the New World, or there might be new opportunities for him, so please keep him safe for me, which is a huge shocker to Jamie. So Jamie and Claire and gang are going to be settling, at least for a while, with Aunt Jocasta and taking care of her plantation and the distillery. I think she does gin, whiskey, and kind of doing the physical labor around there that she can't do because she's blind and now an old woman. Aunt Jocasta, by the way, is Jamie's mother's sister, so there's that too. So here's another check-in on Drums of Autumn. Jamie and Claire have decided to settle down in North Carolina. Jamie says it's fate because they have strawberry plants there, which is kind of the derivative to his last names in his family's history. So that's a fun fact. And I also have to note that I find it really interesting and ironic and intriguing that Jamie and Claire and gang have migrated from Scotland to North Carolina, whereas me in the future, I'll be doing the opposite and going from North Carolina to Scotland. So that's just a fun little thing that I've noticed. We also, in future chapters ahead, in the next couple chapters ahead, have found we're back to Brianna and Roger in kind of the future in Scotland, and Brianna is helping Roger go through all of his dad's old papers and stuff. And Brianna as a character still annoys me. she just annoys me because she's got Roger here and he's trying to do his best, and she's just like, I don't know, she's resistant to a lot of change, I guess, and things happening, and I don't know, her character still annoys me like Claire's did, I guess. And Roger's love for Brianna is just so adorable, so cute. I love it. He's just ready to be her husband and to give her everything, give her the world, and she's so resistant of it. Like, they kiss and then she's, I don't know, maybe she's embarrassed about it, or like just resistant to accepting this love. I don't know, I can't figure it out yet, but anyways, that's my check-in for now. I will check in again soon. So now Roger's proposed to Brianna, and Brianna basically said no. She will sleep with him but not marry him yet because she has conflicted opinions about marriage because of her parents and Jamie and everything that happened with Claire and Frank and Jamie. And Roger's like, okay, well, I'll wait then because you are the one for me, so I will wait for the rest of my life for you if it takes that. And just to see Roger just pour his heart out to Brianna is absolutely amazing, because a lot of times, especially, you know, in the 70s, guys would just take advantage of women and don't care what they think, and he was like, no, I'm either gonna have all of you or none of you, and I'm not just gonna sleep with you and discard you like something like men would do those days, even some men today. But that was just a special moment between Claire and Roger, where they both kind of let a little bit of themselves out. Roger a little bit more than Brianna, because Brianna is still very, very guarded with herself and her true feelings, but that was a special moment that I just had to mention. Now, Jamie and Claire are stuck up on the mountain because Jamie had a back spasm and can't move, and he has revealed to Claire that he's had dreams of Brianna where he knows very intimate details about her, like where a particular birthmark is that Claire has never told him before, and the birthmark is spot on to the actual location of it, and this is like amazing to Claire and to us the readers. Like, to have those specific dreams about something that's actually there in the future is just, I still, on my reread of this, am still amazed by this. And we also have young Ian, who's now making kind of friends with the Indians. So Jamie's kind of half friends with them. They call him the bear killer because he killed a bear in protection of Claire. And now they kind of stop by for quick visits, and they found a local group of people, the Quakers, nearby also. So they're kind of forming a little community together with all three of these groups now in different times. So I love seeing this develop and seeing where it goes from here. You'll notice that this is a little bit shorter vlog maybe than my other ones. That's because I'm really enjoying this reread of Drums of Autumn, but there's less to actually kind of react to here compared to the other books. There's a lot of talking and kind of settling down in this one, and I don't know, maybe it's just my mood, but it just feels like there's less to actually react to here than there was in other ones before. Now we're getting to where it gets really interesting, because we just jumped back ahead to the future, and Roger and Brianna have just discovered a very, very old newspaper clipping where it tells of the death of Jamie and Claire in a house fire in North Carolina. So now they know kind of where Jamie and Claire are at, and it's getting really interesting. So there may be a lot more coming soon. I forgot that they discovered that part in this bit. So we've got some catching up to do. Claire went to, I think, get some herbs and stuff from the woods and hurt her leg. And then she couldn't get back to the cabin. So Jamie and Ian went to look for her. Rollo found her. And there's this whole big to-do about getting her back and everything. And then, lo and behold, Lord John Grey shows up with William, little Willie, and he's obviously a little bit more grown up since the last time we saw him. Lord John Grey's wife died, and now they are on their way to Virginia, and they stop by Fraser's Ridge. Then, let's see, Claire has her little practice set up in North Carolina on Fraser's Ridge and is treating and helping all of the neighbors, delivering babies and whatnot. And then it's discovered Lord John Grey comes down with measles. So Claire, who has already had the measles, and Jamie, who has already had the measles, help take care of Lord John Grey until something happens. One of the Indians, the local Native Americans, also had the measles and he died of it. And Jamie has to go and essentially tell the tribe that Claire did everything she could to help him, but she couldn't help him because it was too late. So there isn't bad blood between them, and to keep them all safe. So he takes Willie with him because Willie can't be in the room with Lord John Grey, or else he will catch the measles also. And so they are off on their adventure to the Indian tribe, and it's really sweet seeing Jamie with Willie and trying to be the father but not say I'm your father, because Willie still believes that his father is essentially dead and Lord John Grey is his stepdad, I think. So that is really, really interesting and heartwarming to see. And I hope you can hear me, because the maintenance guys don't have a set schedule anymore, and they just do shit outside without at any time. They just started blowing leaves or mowing the lawn or something, and they're creating all sorts of noises out there. So now we're back at Fraser's Ridge with Jamie, with Claire and Lord John Grey and young Ian, and Claire and Lord John Grey are kind of talking about what happened with his wife and with Jamie, and Lord John Grey basically says that he has stopped by because he wanted Jamie to be able to see Willie. He doesn't want Willie to know the truth about his dad, but he wanted that moment to happen, so that's why they're there. Ian has also now caught the measles, and so Claire has to take care of all of them, and that's kind of where we're at now, so I'll check in again soon. So Brianna has essentially gone back to find Claire and Jamie in time, and Roger is trying to follow Brianna through, and he's got Fiona helping him because she is essentially part of the, witches group. She's the singer. She knows what to do in order to get the stones working. So this is getting really, really, really interesting now. So Brianna's gone back in time to find Jamie, and now Roger is trying to figure out how to get back in time to Brianna. He tried once and he kind of got pulled back into his own time. So now he's working with Fiona to try to figure out how to get back, because he's worried about her and he loves her, and that's their story. So we'll see where this goes. Brianna's found Jamie's family, Jenny and the family and kids and grandkids, and this reunion is just so sweet and heartwarming. And of course Leary's there and causes all sorts of trouble, but then things get smoothed out, and Jenny and Brianna are talking, and it's just so heartwarming. Everyone is happy to meet Brianna, not because she's Brianna, but because they never expected Jamie to have a kid, and that just is so heartwarming. I love it so much. So Ian has shown Brianna around Lallybrock, and they're talking about kind of Jamie and the history and the family and all of that, and then Brianna gets ready to leave for America. We meet Lizzie, who becomes Brianna's kind of servant on her journey to America, and then we jump to Roger, who has gone back finally, successfully, and he meets Stephen Bonnet. He becomes kind of a crew member on his ship and they sail to America, and then Roger and Brianna reunite and they're handfasted, which is basically like a temporary marriage. They become handfasted, and then when they can find a priest, then they have the official ceremony, and that's where I've left it now. So in Drums of Autumn, Brianna and Roger have reunited. They got handfasted and they, did the dirty, had a sexy scene, and then they talked about what Roger has discovered from Gaelus's notebook, and that they might be able to go back once they find Jamie and talk to Jamie. I don't know really what their plan is, but Roger is going back to Stephen Bonnet's ship to get the gem that he saw there. Meanwhile, Brianna is going to make her way to Fraser's Ridge with Lizzie because Lizzie is sick, and Brianna thinks that her mom Claire is the only one that can really help Lizzie right now. And in the process of doing this, she comes across Claire's wedding ring for Frank. She meets Stephen Bonnet, and now we're going to get this whole confrontation scene where Stephen Bonnet truly becomes the villain of this book. And so far, really the rest of the series. I was wrong. The confrontation between Brianna and Stephen Bonnet that I was expecting doesn't happen until later, I think. Now, Brianna has found Jamie, and Jamie took her back to Fraser's Ridge, and she's now reunited with Claire, and they're just one big happy family. Meanwhile, Roger is off on his own adventure. But that moment when Brianna meets Jamie is just so special. I just love it so much. So a lot has happened in Dragonfly and Amber since I last checked in. So Roger made it to Fraser's Ridge, but he met Jamie, I believe, or Ian, I think it was Jamie, along the way, and Jamie actually thought he was the man that supposedly raped Brianna instead of Roger. He didn't know he was Roger, so he beat the hell out of him, and he sent him to essentially live with the Indians. And thinking that, that's done, he took care of him. Brianna is pregnant and dealing with that now, and Jamie and Claire had a conversation about Claire is trying to decide whether she will help Brianna essentially have an abortion or not. Brianna, I don't think Brianna really wants to because it's a living baby inside her, but Claire wants to give her that choice, but at the same time she's scared to death to do it, because if she does one wrong thing, then Brianna will bleed to death. And the way that so now they're trying to, Brianna says it's a living thing inside her, so does she really want to have an abortion and kill it, or is she going to bring in she's convinced that it's Stephen Bonnet's baby. Claire was on the fence for a while, but now that she's considering the idea of abortion, I think she's also convinced somehow. And Jamie doesn't know any different. So I think Brianna has decided at this point to wait until Roger comes and let him decide, because he's the one that's going to be either raising, if he decides to keep the baby, in Brianna's mind, he'll be raising a baby that's not his, and he deserves that choice. So that's where we're at now. So Jamie and Ian realize that they beat up the wrong guy and sent off the wrong guy. While talking to Claire and Brianna sketches a picture of Roger, they realize that Roger was the one that they have sent off with the Indians. So now Brianna is in River Run with Aunt Jocasta, and she's got her baby in her. And Jamie vows to bring back Roger and says he will not come back without Roger. And so now Jamie and Claire and Ian are off to find Roger. And that whole scene with Brianna and Jamie and Claire really annoyed me because they try to put their future values on Jamie, like I've talked about before, and that's not right because they chose to come back to the past knowing that things would be different. But when Jamie tries to just be himself, they essentially don't accept it because they have these future values, which are right, but you can't get mad at Jamie for doing what he thinks is right. And also, they got mad at him and Ian for beating up the wrong guy, but they had no idea what Roger looked like. They went off of what Lizzie said. Lizzie said, this is the man that raped Brianna, and they asked Roger if he took her maidenhood, her virginity, and he said yes because he didn't know about Stephen Bonnet. So Claire says that Brianna has the Scots stubbornness, but she is so much like her mother, where she just infuriates me at times because she goes to the past and is mad when things are different, when you know things are going to be different. So girl, just get over it. Get over it already. Now, while Brianna's been at Aunt Jocasta's, Lord John Grey has showed up and he's learned of her situation. And Brianna kind of proposed to Lord John Grey, knowing that either of them can't be with the person that they want to be. And Lord John Grey said, no, Jamie would never forgive me for that. But I will pretend to be engaged to you to get all these other suitors off of your back. So now they're pretending to be engaged, so this should be interesting. And just before I had to send out a big long email for work, I got to the point where I think Jamie and gang have found Roger at last. So Roger has gone through this big whole ordeal with the Mohawk tribe that he's with. He was held essentially captive with another person, and that guy said, if you're a priest, pray for me. Roger prayed for him, and then the dude was taken and essentially burned at the stake. So now Roger's scared to death that this is going to happen to him, and then he sees Jamie's face, and that's where I've left it now. So Jamie and Claire and Ian have found Roger, and they've told Roger about Brianna being pregnant and that the baby might be Stephen Bonnet's. And Jamie basically told Roger that if he can't father a baby that might not be his, he should not come back. And so now Roger is off kind of trying to figure this out on his own, trying to figure out what to do because he loves Brianna so much and he wants to have a family with her, but it's that father dilemma where will you be able to raise a child knowing that it might not be your child? So that's where I'm at now. And meanwhile, back at Aunt Jocasta's town in River Run, Lord John Grey has found out that Stephen Bonnet is in town and in jail right now. And Brianna has come up with a plan to kill Stephen Bonnet to try to fix those problems. And so she's kind of like planned to blow up the jail. And so that's where we're at now. A lot of craziness is happening. This story is really getting going, and I've got less than 3 hours in this audiobook to go, like 2.5 hours to go. So I will be finishing it today, and I'm so excited. So I've got about an hour left in this audiobook, and now Brianna has had her baby. It's a baby boy, and Roger has come back. And we find out that he took a little bit of time to really think about this. Think about his decision, if he'd be able to raise a baby that he might not know if it's his or not ever. And he even went to the Standing Stone Circle to ponder all of this. But he's decided to come back, and he's really beat up from his time with the Mohawks and with his trip, and his foot is all messed up. But he's back and slowly making amends with everyone. His relationship with Brianna is a little stilted because she's offended that he did have to think about it, but I don't blame him because it's a hard decision to make. You can't make it just in an instant like that. It's something that needs to be thought about, and I think Jamie will respect Roger for actually really thinking about that decision and thinking it through and not just jumping right in. So that's where we're at now. Like I said, I've got an hour, 16 minutes left on this. I'm going to finish it out today, and I will check in again probably once I have finished this book. So I have finished Drums of Autumn audiobook, and I love the very, very, very ending of this. So at the end, we have basically Roger tells Jamie about a letter he found from Frank to Roger's adopted stepdad, the Reverend, about essentially Jamie's resting place. And he's like, I don't know what to do with this now. I'm going to entrust this to you, which shows a lot of trust that Roger has in Jamie. Jamie really respects that. And then we have like this gathering on Fraser's Ridge with all of the Scots, and we have Duncan comes to ask for Jamie's approval to marry Jocasta. And this is different than in the TV show, because in the TV show we still have Murtaugh, and Murtaugh's the one that marries Jocasta. But in the books, as you know, Murtaugh died at Culloden, and so now we're going to have some weddings in the next book. And Brianna has forgiven Roger. At the very last thing we get in Drums of Autumn is everyone, all the clans are, announcing their family names, and we're here, Frasers are here, these guys are here, and at the very end, Brianna says, with baby Jem in her hands, they named him Jeremiah, Jem for short, because that was one of Roger's names when he was a baby. She says, tell them that the Mackenzies are here, and that just gave me goosebumps. Other things that we learned at the end was that the woman that Roger met on the ship, where he also met Stephen Bonnet, Morag, is actually his ancestor. So he met his ancestors on the ship and didn't even know that until he kind of added things together while he was pondering things. So Claire has looked at the Rogers family tree in detail many, many times, and he confirms this with Claire that was Morag and Jem, the first baby Jem, on that ship, and so that's exciting news for Roger. So I finished Drums of Autumn. I think I give this 4 out of 5 stars, maybe 4.5. Let's give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I loved seeing all the different points of views and the different stories coming together, but it was a little bit of a drag at times. But 4.5 out of 5 stars, let's go with that. And in August, I will be moving on to book 5. In August, we have book 5, which is The Fiery Cross. So I'm so excited to keep going. Today's recipe is one that modern cooking and technology has kind of made very, very simple. The recipe title is called Mrs. Fitzgibbon's Overnight Partridge, and it's basically oatmeal made overnight. I use the very 21st, 22nd century, the 2021 method of using the instant oatmeal in the packet with already the flavorings and everything added. But for fun, I'm going to read off the quote from this recipe and show you a picture of my oatmeal, and then I'll put the recipe for the overnight partridge in the Discord with all the other recipes. And then you'll finally get this reading vlog. So this quote comes from the very first book, Outlander, Chapter 5, The Mackenzie. Himself, I said. I didn't care for the sound of this. Whoever himself was, he was likely to ask difficult questions. Why, the Mackenzie, to be sure. Whoever else? Who else, indeed? Castle Leoch, I dimly recalled, was in the middle of the Clan Mackenzie lands. Plainly, the clan chieftain was still the Mackenzie. I began to understand why our little band of horsemen had ridden through the night to reach the castle. This would be a place of impregnable safety to men pursued by the crown's men. No English officer with a grain of sense would lead his men so deeply into the clan lands. To do so was to risk death by ambush at the first clumps of trees, and only a good-sized army could come as far as the castle gates. I was trying to remember whether in fact the English army ever had come so far, when I suddenly realized that the eventual fate of the castle was much less relevant than my immediate future. I had no appetite for the bannocks and partridge that Mrs. Fitzgibbons had brought for my breakfast, but crumbled a bit and pretended to eat, in order to gain some time for thought. By the time Mrs. Fitz came back to conduct me to the Mackenzie, I had cobbled together a rough plan. So this overnight partridge was traditionally made from oatmeal and stirred with a spurtle clockwise to keep the devil away. Partridge, or porridge, evolved from pottage, a thick vegetable and grain stew that served as the mainstay of the European diet until the 17th century. And this less dense version is made with steel-cut or rolled oats, or if you're like me, the instant variety. Start it just before you go to bed and finish it in the morning for an easy, nutritious, and creamily delicious breakfast in minutes. Or use the instant version and just boil some hot water and pour it over the oats. So, I hope you've enjoyed this reading vlog. I know it's super late because I'm about to finish the 5th book in this series. But I hope you liked this. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Come to my Patreon. We're only $1 a month and we have a ton of fun. Come to the Discord. We have a ton of fun there too. As always, my Patreon and my Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back.